The other thing that's the big one is that it seems that Cleveland is coming to a point where they got to make a decision on Garland and Mitchell.
Yes.
That Mitchell has become more ball dominant over time there. That Darius Garland, after last season where he had a very good year, and everyone is kind of looking at him as, oh, he's going to make another leap. Now he has stagnated. I won't say regressed. I'd say stagnated is the right word. And he's represented by Rich Paul, very well-connected, powerful guy. And the implication is if Mitchell stays, and some people believe he will, that Garland is on the way out. And so all of that to arrive at a place where we don't know what the future holds for Donovan Mitchell. What we do know, or at least what I think I know, and I think you probably agree with me on this,
Yep.
It is going to cost way more to get Donovan Mitchell than most of the other, if not all of the other, at least semi-available players on the market. So the Jimmy Butlers of the world, even like your cousin, our family on the show, I think it'll probably cost more to get Mitchell than it would to get Mikal, although we'll see depending on what the asking prices are there. If you go down the list of all those guys, Mitchell will be at the top of the board, and some of that is because the Lakers are interested, the Heat are interested, both New York teams are interested in Donovan. And so for the Sixers to have any shot to get Donovan, they have to be willing to go to as far as they can go with draft picks. We're talking about the 2026 first that they have from either the Clippers, Rockets, or Thunder, the 2028 Clippers first that they got in that Harden trade, the 2029 first of their own, this year's pick number 16. They have a Clippers swap in 2029. A handful of second-round picks that they own from both themselves, the Knicks, the Clippers, the Blazers in 2029. So a whole list of things. I think, I don't know this for sure, but I think if they wanted to get Mitchell, it would cost basically all of that.
Yep.
I'm not sure, as good as I think Donovan Mitchell is, that is worth it, because let's compare it to Jimmy Butler. If we were to say you set the line at 2 first-round picks for Jimmy, and I think that ultimately is fair, even if Miami probably doesn't agree to it today. In that scenario, you get Jimmy, and you still have some capital left over. Like you probably have a first or 2 firsts to go out there and say, hey, let's go to Chicago and talk about Alex Caruso, or maybe you can work out some kind of sign and trade with Denver for a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You get another high-level role player. Like, however that secondary trade or future trade looks, maybe you just hold on to those picks and say, let's see how the team shakes out ahead of the deadline. We're going to see what Mitchell, Maxey, Joel Embiid looks like. You have a backup plan, or you have some bullets left in the clip to pursue the type of in-between fit players that you need between that big three. With Mitchell, you got to send everything. And if it doesn't work, and there's a decent chance it won't, because Tyrese and Donovan, as we'll get to later, they're an okay fit. I don't think an ideal fit. Then you're kind of stuck. And then you say, all right, well, if this isn't working, more than likely we got to move one of the big three. Sure. And we've talked a lot about on this show the repercussions of building around 3 stars with the way the salary cap and the new collective bargaining agreement works. So I think it would be a reasonable gamble. He is only 27. He'll be 28 years old in September. So he fits in that in your prime, all-star, all-NBA guy still at his peak. He fits the bill in all those ways. But then you have to decide, is it worth boxing the team in for that specific group of 3? I'm not so sure that's the case.
Yeah, and that is a lot to give up. Of course, you want to make sure a lot of things come together when you're certainly putting the team together. We talk so much about roster construction and what it looks like, even as one of the names that we threw out on yesterday's show, just for sake of fun conversation about finding that Aaron Gordon mix. I threw out a name that in Anthony Simons who can just score the basketball.
Yeah.
He's nowhere near the level of Donovan Mitchell. But the question, of course, when we discuss fit, and we'll get into more of that later, you want to make sure when you give up this many picks that a lot of things align with who you're pairing him with. Mm-hmm. And when you have everything that you have now stacked up that Daryl Morey currently has, and all of this discussion about not making certain moves at the trade deadline because you're setting yourself up for the offseason because of the treasure chest that you certainly do have, and you can dip into to go and acquire whatever player you target, Paul George, Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, and now in this conversation here, as far as Donovan Mitchell, you better make sure it's right. Yeah. And that's a lot to give up for the questions that are still there. Now, the interesting part of it, of course, with all of these players that we do name, there are a lot of questions. There are so many questions with the age, the fit next to one or both of the stars that you currently have here in town. And you also want to make sure that the guy simply wants to be here. He's eligible for an extension off of you already laid out the time that he has left, the 2 years, player option 25-26. He's going to make 30 plus this season. He's eligible for an extension now.
And the extension, I believe, is worth up to 4 years, $208 million.
And I think that is if he makes All NBA, or it's because he made All NBA last season.
I'm not. So I just know that right now he's eligible for a $200+ million
and that's a big commitment, and you want to make sure that that's right. So if you're going to do that and you're going to give it up, all that stuff, then you still have to roster build the rest of the team, where you mentioned Alex Caruso. Can you go? Because as we've discussed so far already, you only have 4 players currently on the roster under contract, adding Paul Reed and Ricky Council to that mix. And by the way, for the people who already jumped in before we got started and just simply saying, give up what? Tyrese Maxey? No. You're only doing any move to pair him with Maxey and Embiid, whoever it is.
We are past the point of talking about trading Tyrese Maxey, I promise.
So let's just make that very, very clear. Maxey's going nowhere. It's just a matter of this. So if you're going to do this, you got to do it right. And is it worth giving up all of that? Because Kyle laid out a lot of stuff there. Are you willing to give up all of that in order to get Donovan Mitchell? Is Donovan Mitchell worth all of that? Is he good enough for all of that after you saved all of these picks to get to this point, to not make the trades at the trade deadline and send away other smaller pieces that you maybe could have traded, Jaden Springer, stuff like that, to set up for this spot? Is Donovan Mitchell the right one to pair with the Philadelphia 76ers? It's a worthy gamble, as Kyle said. I will agree with that. He's not my favorite of all the names that we've laid out there to pair up with this group, because of some of the deficiencies that are there. I like watching Donovan Mitchell from afar. I was a real big fan coming out of Louisville, what he did in Utah. I was against everybody arguing him and Simmons and the Rookie of the Year as if he wasn't deserving because Simmons was the #1 pick before and what he was doing. Mitchell was damn good. He has gotten better every single year. And you saw it even in this playoff run where he has been phenomenal, especially against the Orlando Magic and doing the things that he did against the Boston Celtics. I don't know that he's the right or perfect fit, as close to perfect, with this group to give up all of that for Donovan Mitchell.
We all silly like the mayor.